Welcome. We'll get started in just a moment, but while we're waiting, what is your favorite prehistoric reptile or amphibian? You can go ahead and type that into the chat below. And if you don't have an answer for that quite yet, you can just say hi in the chat as well. So let's see here. All right. Welcome. We'll get started in just a moment. Piper and Adeline say hi. Hi. Welcome to the program. Awesome. And while we're waiting for some answers, Sam, what is your favorite prehistoric reptile or amphibian?
That's a really good question. I think one of my favorites is in the presentation, so I don't want to spoil that one.
That's true.
But if we're talking about prehistoric reptiles, dinosaurs count. So I am going to say Deinonychus is my favorite dinosaur, which is a type of raptor. It's like a velociraptor, but if you think of like the Jurassic Park movies, it's about the size of the velociraptors that are in those movies, because velociraptors are like the size of turkeys. So
yeah. Oh, that's so cool. I actually didn't realize they were that tiny.
yeah, they're pretty small in comparison, but they made them rather large because I guess velociraptor sounds cooler than Deinonychus. Oh, we have a favorite velociraptor.
Yeah,
in chat.
Awesome. Well. That's awesome. Oh, yeah, and Jen was asking what the question was again. What is your favorite reptile or prehistoric reptile and amphibian? Excuse me.
Favorite prehistoric reptile or amphibian? Yeah, so I like the raptors.
Yeah, I do as well. I just like kind of how they run.
Yeah, and the little extra claw that they have on their foot.
Exactly. Yeah. Ooh, someone is saying Pachycephalosaur. Is that one? That's pretty cool too. That's awesome.
Yeah, those are the dinosaurs with the really hard heads.
Oh, that's right.
The domes for the heads.
That's awesome.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah, all right. So I think everyone has joined us for now, so we can move right along. All right, so welcome again, everyone, to Natural Sciences Classroom, Reptile and Amphibian Day edition. We are hosting this program on Zoom and YouTube for this special event. And just as a reminder, the program is recorded and will be available afterwards on YouTube. So for folks who are joining us on Zoom webinar, we'll go over a short tutorial in case you're new to this particular format. So to ask any questions or make any comments, you can use the chat function that's indicated by the chat box icon below here. But please remember to be a good digital citizen and respect everyone who is here with us today. And this also goes for people in YouTube as well. You have two options in the chat box to either message panelists only, which would include myself as well as Sam and others behind the scenes, or you can message panelists and all attendees, which means just everyone will be able to see your comments and or questions. And we do have captions available today. So to enable those, you can click on the CC button below the screen as well and select show subtitles. For those who are joining on the YouTube side, you can participate using the live chat to make any questions or comments and enable captions by clicking the CC button towards the bottom of the video as well. So again, thank you everyone for joining. My name is Jean and I'll be your host for today's program. I'll also be looking out for any questions you might have, so definitely ask away. And I'm more excited to be presenting our speaker for today, Sam Frigerio, who is the museum's outreach specialist, and she will be talking about prehistoric reptiles and amphibians. So without further ado, Sam, please take it away.
All right.
I'll stop.
I'll start sharing mine. Okay, so today we get to talk about prehistoric reptiles and amphibians, which are really awesome. And it was really hard for me to narrow down specific ones to talk about today because there are so many cool ones that are in the fossil record. So we get to talk about those. And the reason why and I know this is titled Prehistoric Reptiles, Creatures of Legend, but I also want to talk about the amphibians because they're really cool. And the reason why we call them creatures of legend is because they're so strange. Some of them have just really strange like body features or like proportions and like things like that too. So they are something like out of a mythical story here. So before we begin talking about specific examples of the reptiles and amphibians, I wanted to talk about just in general the history of Earth. And so I have a picture here. It looks a little intense. There's a lot of names here as far as like the geologic timeline. But what I basically want to focus on is the fact that This is showing how we find fossils. So we find them in the ground, obviously. And the older fossils are at the bottom. And as you get up higher in the different layers of Earth, that gets to be the newer fossils. And so when I'm talking about some of these different prehistoric discoveries, I want to be talking about the ones in specifically the Paleozoic, which was basically before dinosaurs. And then the Mesozoic here in the middle. And that was when the dinosaurs were alive. So I might mention the Triassic, the Jurassic, and the Cretaceous, which are 3 time periods that the dinosaurs were alive and the dominant animals on Earth there. And then finally, I might mention the Cenozoic, which is a big term for like new age things. So for instance, we're talking about the Ice Age was during this time, and we're actually living in the Cenozoic right now because we are part of history here. And I wanted to say that this is an amazing art drawn by Ray Troll, and he actually has a song that goes along with all of these different time periods in Earth's history. So he has a song called Ages of Rock on YouTube. And if we have the link, we can post it in chat, but if not, no worries. But yeah, it's a fun little sing-along that he has there. So if you find it, but it's a good way to go through all of those times. All right. And I meant to mention with this, with the different species that we'll be talking about, I have a little like timeline up in the top here, and it'll say like, you know, if this animal was in the Paleozoic before dinosaurs versus the Mesozoic when dinosaurs were alive versus the Cenozoic, which is like now essentially. All right, so dinosaurs are reptiles. They're part of the same family as, you know, all of the other reptiles that we'll be talking about today, but they're a different branch. So we're, as cool as dinosaurs are, we're going to focus on like the less well-known reptiles as far as that goes. And some of the differences you can kind of see in these animations here. So as far as like reptiles go, their hips are a little different. So their legs are kind of out to the sides of them. Their thighs are kind of parallel to the ground. And they walk with like a side to side motion that you can kind of see in this marine iguana walking side to side, versus like with the dinosaurs, their legs were directly underneath their body. And so they didn't have as much of that side to side motion. They would just kind of like walk like, you know, you or I would walk. And so with a lot of these animals that we'll be talking about today, you can kind of see that like the hips being a little different as far as that goes. So some of the differences, but again, not focusing so much on dinosaurs today. And that being said, my example of paleoart is a dinosaur, but I did want to talk about the importance of paleoartists and their paleoart, because without paleoartists, we wouldn't have as vivid of an idea of what the prehistoric world would have looked like, because again, there weren't humans alive when dinosaurs were alive, so we couldn't take selfies with the Tyrannosaurus Rex or take pictures of the different dinosaurs that were alive. So paleoartists help us imagine what that prehistoric world might have looked like. And so the cool thing about paleoartists is that it combines art and science. So the people who are creating these landscapes and things like that rely a lot on animals that are alive today and their biology and anatomy and things like that. And so they base a lot of the prehistoric creatures on current animals. But the other cool thing is that they don't really have a full picture of the animal that they're depicting. So in this case, this is Dakotaraptor. And if you look at this drawing, the white bones are the fossils that have been found of the Dakotaraptor. And so if you look, there's like maybe like a leg bone and a claw and like an arm bone. There are 2 teeth that were found and a couple of the tail bones that were found. The gray is like the what we imagine the bones to be like based on the placement of the found fossils, but the only fossils we found were in is in white. And so in this case, Emily Willoughby is a paleoartist who created Dakotaraptor from just these bones that were found. And she created what looks like this. Again, this is one of the raptors, so one of my favorite families of dinosaurs. But they have feathers, and she did like the colors based on animals that are alive today. And kind of showing off, again, a full picture of an animal from just a few bones, which I think is really, really cool. And here's a picture of the Paleoartist here. So Paleoart is very important, and you all get to be Paleoartists today. And I forgot to say at the very beginning, but there is a Paleoart section of this program today. So if you have a writing utensil or a piece of paper, make sure to grab those, or multiple ones, because we have a couple of animals that we'll be going through. But yeah, Jean, do you want to talk about what we'll be doing for?
Yeah, absolutely. And before we actually get into that, we did have a couple of questions, if I could ask you those. Awesome.
Yes.
Yeah. So the first question, I think it's more for clarification's sake. Did all dinosaurs have feathers?
That's a great question. Yeah. Not necessarily. So the ones that have feathers are in what we call the theropod family. It's the family that contains Tyrannosaurus rex and Velociraptor and Archaeopteryx, that kind of family. And these ones were the meat-eating carnivorous dinosaurs that had the 3 toes and would walk on their hind legs. And these ones, it was dinosaurs in this family that have been found to have feathers.
Oh, okay, awesome. Thank you so much for clarifying that. And we just have 2 other questions really quickly.
Yeah, no worries.
The second one is, what taxonomic level are archosaurs? I've never heard of archosaurs before.
That's a great question. So archosaurs are the entire group that contains dinosaurs. Crocodiles are in this group. They're the living members of this group, and birds as well are the living members of the group. So it's like that kind of group of animals there, and so they're all like different branches on the tree. So we're focusing more on like the crocodile bird kind of side of things.
Gotcha. That's awesome. Thank you. And last question. What is the smallest dinosaur and the largest or biggest dinosaur ever?
That's a great question. So if you're talking about the smallest dinosaur, birds are dinosaurs. They have evolved from this, again, theropods, the same family that Tyrannosaurus rex and Archaeopteryx and Velociraptor are in. And so if we're talking about the smallest dinosaur, it is still alive today. It is what is called the bee hummingbird. It's about this big. It's about 2 inches. And so that's the smallest dinosaur. And then the largest one that we found is a dinosaur in the long neck family, the sauropods, the ones with the really long necks and the tiny heads at the top. And they were Patagotitans. They were found in South America, in Patagonia.
Wow.
So.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
Okay, and I did lie. We have one more question. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Okay, so last one. What was the purpose of the feathers in such big dinosaurs? I almost said big birds, sorry.
Yeah, no, I mean, birds are dinosaurs. Okay, so the feathers could have been used for multiple things. So for instance, we haven't found a Tyrannosaurus rex specimen like in the fossil record with feathers, but a lot of other relatives of Tyrannosaurus rex had feathers. One of them being Utyrannus, which lived in colder climates, and so it would have needed the feathers to help keep it warm. So that's one way that it could be used. The other thing that they could use them for could have been camouflage. They could have blended in with their environments based on the different colors on the feathers. And there are also some theories about how some of the theropods used their feathers and their wings to hunt. So they would have helped them hunt. In particular, some of the raptors and things like that could have used their feathers if they were like jumping on prey to help balance themselves and things like that too. So.
That makes a lot of sense. Awesome. Thank you so much, Sam. Sorry for all the questions.
No, I love these questions. These are great.
Thank you. So yeah, we'll just move right along into our paleo art activity. So we do have this sort of sketch along paleo art activity for everyone to do. And we have our 2 guest paleo artists, Taylor and Rachel, here with us as well, who will be sketching along with us as Sam sort of describes these different types of prehistoric reptiles and amphibians. And you get to also be a paleo artist. So you can draw along with us with the materials that Sam had mentioned earlier. I believe it's a piece of paper and a pencil or a pen, correct? Okay, and is there anything else that the audience needs to know before we get started?
I think that's basically it. We have about 4 animals, depending on time. So if you save room on your piece of paper for 4 animals, then that'd be good. But yeah, and what I'm basically going to be doing is I'm going to be describing the animal. I'm trying to describe it in a way that doesn't give away the animal. So I might not be very specific with my descriptions, but it's kind of like Paleoartists, right? They get a few fossils and have to depict an entire animal based on that. So I'm going to try to be a little bit vague, but I'm going to be describing the different animals, and you all might start getting what they are in the middle of drawing them. You might be like, oh, I know this animal, in which case put your guesses in chat. We'll see if anyone guesses what animals we're talking about. But yes, I'm going to try to not give away the animal as I describe them, and you all can try to draw it from that. All right. Okay, so I think Taylor is going to be first up to draw. So if you want to share your screen, Taylor. All right. Okay, and everyone has their pens and paper ready. Okay, so for this first animal that I'm going to describe, it is a very tall animal overall. And so with this animal, it has 4 limbs, so two front legs and 2 back legs that are very long.
Okay.
And the front legs are a little different than normal. So the front legs have 3 like segments to them, or like joints, 3 parts to them. And the first 2 parts look like regular legs, but the back part goes backwards. the third part goes back.
Okay, wait. I'm just gonna. So it's like.
Yeah, so it's like two long back legs, and then the front legs are in 3 parts.
You're doing great.
Perfect.
Great. And then can you describe the back legs again?
So the back legs are just kind of like long back legs, like normal.
Oh, okay.
And it's a little bit hunched over with its posture. There we go.
Awesome. And we do have some guesses already for this one. Some folks are saying T-Rex. Some are saying raptor so far.
Yeah. Great guesses so far. Okay, and then it's kind of hunched over. And unfortunately, Taylor, I'm very sorry, but it has a very long neck. It has a very, very long, skinny neck that kind of goes up over. And a long, pointed head. A very long, pointed head.
I got it. Okay. And a long, pointed head.
Yeah, and its nose kind of goes all the way out and extends to a little point.
This is as best as I can do, guys.
No, that's perfect.
You're
doing great. Yeah. All right. Okay, and then so the body is kind of like a little football shape. It has a little tail at the end.
Okay.
We got some more guesses here. Some folks are saying sauropod,
Perfect.
A brontosaurus. Someone said an armadillo.
Very nice.
I'm not sure what this one is.
Very nice.
Penosaurus? Something like that.
Spinosaurus. Spinosaurus. Yeah. So that one's also a theropod in the family. Great guesses. Okay. Okay. So with the arms again, so it has 3 points, and then the third kind of limb points backwards, and then there's a membrane that connects the bones in the arm. So there's like an extra bit of skin that connects all of the little bones in the arm.
You lost me.
All right, I'll keep on describing, and then I'll just describe the face, and then I'll show you what it looks like. Okay. All right, so there's that membrane that connects all of the bones in the arm. And then going back to the face, there's 2 eyes at the kind of base of this little pointy bit of the face. So there's 1 eye on each side. And then its mouth basically goes from its eye to the end of its nose. Beautiful. All right. All right, are we all ready to see what animal this is?
Yes.
Tilly, you did a fabulous job.
Yes, you did. Good job.
I'm going to start sharing my screen to show. Doop. All right, so this is the animal, what we call Quetzalcoatlus. And it is a type of pterosaur. So if you were guessing pterodactyl or pterodon or something along those lines, you would have gotten it. Again, that extra membrane of skin that kind of connects the arms helps it fly. Has that really, really large kind of beak at the end of its head. And if you, and it gets its name from the Aztec feathered serpent god Quetzalcoatl. And this is actually my favorite prehistoric reptile, a flying reptile as far as this goes. So, but this one was huge. So it's found in 1971 and its wingspan is, if not at 35 feet, then over 35 feet, which is the length of a school bus. So when it stretched its arms out, it would have been the length of a school bus. And it weighed about 400 to 500 pounds estimated, which is about the same as a grizzly bear. So imagine like a flying grizzly bear, essentially, with wings that are longer than a school bus. And it was alive when the dinosaurs were alive. It went extinct when the large non-avian dinosaurs went extinct. But it was alive kind of around the same time as Tyrannosaurus rex and Triceratops and things like that. And I wanted to put it in scale how large it was. So here are other members of its family, the pterosaurs. Again, these are our flying reptiles that were living in prehistoric times. If you look, this is Pterodactylus, or what we call pterodactyl. It has a 3-foot wingspan. So this is compared to an average human male. This would be like about as large as that one is. So, you know, pretty small in comparison. And then if we think about Pteranodon, which is another pterosaur in that family, it had about a 20-foot wingspan. So again, here's the little like average human, and it was a little bit larger. And then Quetzalcoatlus was this big, so average human right here. And again, the wingspan was huge, so 35 plus feet. With that one. And then here we have a reconstruction of the skeleton. And you can kind of see again, like we were talking about with those hips and the thighs that are kind of parallel to the ground. It had that in those back legs there. But again, quite a large creature, one of our largest flying reptiles. I think there might have been one that was discovered that was a little bit larger than this one, but yeah, quite large.
Yeah. We do have a question regarding Quetzalcoatlus.
Yeah.
Someone was asking, just because of how large, their head is compared to their neck size, how does the neck support the head so well? Like,
that's a great question. Yeah. It had to have like a really impressive either like muscles in the neck or muscles in like the kind of like wishbone area that kind of helps support that head. But yeah, it must have, especially with like the beak also was probably pretty heavy.
For sure.
So yeah.
Wow. Okay, thank you. And we just have another question about Quetzalcoatlus. Why did they name it after the Aztec god?
That's a great question. So it was found in like Texas area, I think was one of the first specimens. But I'm sure that other specimens have been found kind of in that kind of area of like in Mexico area. And so with that, the kind of regional, the Aztecs were in Mexico, so they would have had that kind of regional thing. And also it was the feathered serpent god, and so I'm assuming maybe with like the neck looking like a serpent, that kind of thing. Yeah. So awesome. That would be my guess. I'm not actually positive of why they would name it, but for me it would make sense.
Thank you so much for answering those questions.
Perfect. All right, okay, so for animal number 2, let me stop sharing my screen. All right, and Rachel is going to get to draw this one.
Ready?
All right. Okay, wonderful. All right, so for this one, this animal has a longer body and it's standing on its back legs, not on all fours like our last animal. So it's standing on its back legs, and it has claws on the back legs. There's 5 toes and claws on the back legs. And it has a long tail.
A lot of toes.
Beautiful, yes.
Can you describe the tail again?
Long tail, kind of slightly, there's a slight wave to it, but not too much, but it comes to a point at the end. And then it has 2 arms as well. And the arms are kind of hanging down and the hands look like if you just got a manicure and you're waiting for your nail polish to dry.
Okay.
I love that description so much.
And there's 5 of them as well.
And we're getting a lot of guesses for T-Rex, both from YouTube and from our Zoom.
Oh, great guesses.
Some folks are still saying raptors.
Yeah, great guesses.
Someone said Godzilla, which honestly,
That's what it looks like.
I mean, yeah. All right. Okay, so its neck is really large as well. It's the same width as the body, and it leads into a head that has a long nose, long snout, but its mouth is open in this picture. So long snout with the mouth open. And it has lots of pointy teeth. Beautiful. Okay, and then 2 eyes, one on either side of the head. All right. Okay, so I am going to, so that is basically the description that I'm gonna have. And I'll share this screen. Beautiful. Hold on. Okay, so this is what I was talking about here. I'll see it.
yes.
Okay, all right. So those of you who said Godzilla, you actually aren't very off. It does look like Godzilla. It's definitely smaller than Godzilla. I think Godzilla is the size of Manhattan, but yes, it is what we call Carnifex, and its scientific name means Carolina butcher. And this one was found in North Carolina, as it indicates by its scientific name. But it was described in 2015 by one of our head paleontologists at the museum. And we only found 2 specimens. One was just like an arm bone, and the other one had like a skull, essentially. But they're what we call crocodilomorphs, which is a big scientific word for saying that they're in the crocodile family. So it's like a crocodile, but it would walk on its 2 back legs, which sounds, I would not want to meet this one. And the one that we found wasn't a fully grown adult, but they're at least 9 feet long, which doesn't seem like too much when you think of like today's modern day crocodiles can get to like 20 feet. But again, this one wasn't an adult, so it could have gotten a lot larger. We don't really know. But this one was found, again, described in 2015, but it was from the late Triassic. So kind of when dinosaurs were starting to become a big thing, but they were, so it was living around the same time as the dinosaurs too. But this is one of our earliest animals that we'll be talking about today in terms of like the fossil record here. And these were the fossils that were found of the different species. So again, we only found like, 2 fossils near the neck and like an arm fossil and the skull, and we have to describe the rest of the species based on that. But based on the sizes of the bones and things like that, that's how we, and other crocodilomorphs that were alive at the same time, that's kind of how we describe it. And then, so we're here in Raleigh, which is that yellow triangle, and it was found, Carnifex was found in the red kind of star area, so a little bit southwest of Raleigh there. And it was in the Pekin Formation, which is this blue area here, right there. Yeah. All right. So yeah, that was the Carolina butcher. Were there any questions about that one? That Godzilla-esque?
Yeah, so we do have a couple of questions that pertain to Carnifex in particular. So Adrian was asking, did it walk on its hind legs all of the time?
That's a great question. So most likely for this one, it did walk on it the majority of the time, but if it were like, you know, every so often would have been like, you know, walking on all fours as well. But the way that just the proportion of the front legs to the hind legs were a lot larger. And so that would be mostly on two legs, but not all the time.
Awesome, thank you.
Yeah,
and then just another question regarding relating to Carnifex again. So how did scientists put so much together from so few bones?
That's really a great question. Yeah, and that has to do with paleontology in general, because it's really rare to find a full animal skeleton in the fossil record. Usually like the bones get split apart, some get destroyed, some stay, some things like that. And so what paleontologists have to do is they have to assemble it from species that were alive at around the same time that they might have more specimens for, like and related species as well as looking at animals that are alive today and like seeing the ratios and things like that too. Like for instance, if you think of Megalodon, which was a fish, a shark that was living in prehistoric times, Megalodon had a cartilage skeleton. So if you like the ear at the top of your ear here, that's cartilage. And so the skeleton doesn't fossilize very well at all. The only thing that fossilizes is the teeth, because they're made out of like a slightly tougher material. And so scientists have had to tell the entire like biology of Megalodon just from the teeth. And so they can kind of get the size based on sharks that are alive today that they think are related, like great white sharks, for instance. So they can scale those teeth to the same scale that great white sharks are, and things like that too. So.
Awesome, thank you. And I lied again, we have two more questions if it's okay to ask those.
Yeah.
Okay. So the other question that relates to Carnifex too is, why is it called the Carolina butcher? Like, why does its name translate to that?
Yeah, that's a great question. So that was what the paleontologists were calling it because it was discovered in North Carolina, and because it was like a crocodile and most likely ate meat and other animals. So it was kind of like a butcher. So it was a fun Latin way to describe it in terms of paleontology.
I love that.
Yeah.
And
but again, described by one of our lead paleontologists, or our lead paleontologist at the museum, Dr. Lindsay Zano. So she was the one who helped describe and find it and things. So
that's awesome. Thank you. And this is the last one. So someone from YouTube actually asked, how can you be sure when you don't find a full skeleton that it's not a dinosaur that already exists?
That's a great question. Yeah. So that is one of the debates. That's a common debate amongst paleontologists too, is because like we don't know necessarily how many species of dinosaur we may have found, because some paleontologists consider fossils that have been found to be like, you know, older or younger versions of the same species of like another one. So we tried to compare them as much as possible to current existing fossils that we have identified, but sometimes it's a guessing game. Sometimes it could be the same species, but just like smaller or larger or something along those lines. So yeah.
So, well, thank you so much for answering all those questions. We really appreciate that.
Yeah, definitely. All right, Taylor, are you ready for animal number 3?
Yeah. Okay.
All right. Okay, so for this one, this reptile has a very long body, and kind of stocky, so kind of round as far as the body goes. It has kind of a crescent shape at the end of one of the ends. There's a tail, and then there's like a little crescent shape at the end of it.
Is this for the tail?
Yes, for the tail.
So
It kind of goes to a point and there's a little like crescent shape at the end.
Maybe.
And then it has 4 limbs, but the limbs are a little different. They don't have fingers or claws or anything. They're kind of flat and rounded.
Okay.
Yeah. Just like that. And in this picture, the one that I'm going to be describing, it has its mouth open and it doesn't really have a neck. Its head kind of just blends into its body. But its mouth is open and it also it's like pointed and the snout is like long and pointed.
Hey, can you describe it one more time?
Yeah. So its head is basically connected to its body. There's not really much of a neck. And its head is long and comes to a point, but in this case, its mouth is open.
Okay.
Yeah, like that. And then it has 2 eyes, so one on each side. And this one's a little bit special because of its mouth. It has what looks like a row of bubbles kind of lining its mouth. Just one row, but going all the way around the mouth. But they look like little bubbles.
Oh.
Yeah, like that. Up in the top and the bottom of the mouth. Perfect.
Ooh. Let's see. So we have a couple of guesses here already. Someone said Stegosaurus. Someone said, let's see, a snapping turtle, an ankylodon. Let's see. Yeah, those are sort of the main ones so far.
All right. Okay, and I actually think I just saw what it was in chat. Someone did guess it correctly. Okay, so I'm going to share what it looks like. Here we go. Great job, Taylor. That looked fabulous.
Love it.
All right. You got the bubbles perfectly. All right. So this is what we call Globidens, which is in the Mosasaur family. So if you were guessing a Mosasaur or Mosasaurus, you were very close. And so this one, Mosasaurs are basically lizards that had flippers and swam around and kind of like shark tails almost and swam around. This one is special because most mosasaurs have cones for teeth, but Globidens was very specialized and had a cool adaptation where its teeth were rounded, and that's where it gets its name. Its name means globe teeth because it has those rounded teeth inside the jaw. And that was specialized for crunching down on shells. So really good at eating like clams and mussels and nautiluses, nautili, and other ammonites and things like that were alive during this time. And so that is what is depicted in this wonderful paleo art. And so with Globidens, it was found kind of almost everywhere around the world, North America, Africa, Southeast Asia, kind of in the northern hemisphere of things. And it was about 20 feet long, so a little bit less than a school bus, about half the size of a school bus. And was also living in the late Cretaceous, kind of when Tyrannosaurus rex and Triceratops and things were alive. And again, and I wanted to show the picture of the teeth so you can kind of see. Here's the fossil of the teeth, and if you look, you can see these little like bubbles up near the top here that were the teeth of this mosasaur. And here's an image of what the jaw would have looked like. Again, very specialized for crunching on shells and different things like that. Okay, and I wanted to show you what a mosasaur would have looked like. So this one is what mosasaur looked like in comparison. So you can kind of see the teeth being sharp cones and things like that too. And so for this one, I actually have a specimen that I want to show as well. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen. And I have a mosasaur jaw replica right here. So if you look, it's about like the length of my arm. And that's just the jaw. So the head would have been, further than this compared to the whole thing. These ones could get up to 50 feet, so almost the length of 2 school buses. But if you look at the teeth, they're more like cone shaped. I'll kind of hold them up there. More like cone shaped. They're kind of like today's modern day alligator and crocodile teeth. And they're really good at catching like fish and things like that, as far as hunting. But again, this is just one side of the jaw of the mosasaur here. And again, with these ones, they're not dinosaurs because they're more closely related to, like, lizards, snakes, that kind of thing. But they are really cool. Also living alongside of dinosaurs. All right. And these ones are definitely found all over the world. They've been found on basically every continent, North and South America, Europe, Asia, Africa, Australia, and even Antarctica. We've found mosasaur fossils in Antarctica. And I just wanted to show off, even though they have little paddles for their legs, they did still have fingers inside the paddles. And so here's a reconstruction of what one of their hands could have looked like here with 5 fingers, just like us. But they would have been, again, inside that paddle that would have helped them swim a lot better. And the first picture is one of the first fossils that was found of mosasaur, and it was just the jaws here. So with those pointy teeth there. And the closest living relatives to mosasaurs are being debated. Paleontologists don't know whether they're in the monitor lizard family or they're more closely related to snakes. But I wanted to show a picture of one of its possible relatives here. So they could have been related to the Komodo dragon, which is one of our living in the Cenozoic currently animals here. All right.
And we did have some questions regarding Globidens, if you could ask that really quickly. Oh, you're okay.
Yeah.
Awesome. So just 2 for now. The first one, when you were showing the Globidens sort of picture, what was that other particular organism that it was sort of going towards to eat?
That was a good question, and I totally meant to look up that species. I have to look that up because it's not a nautilus, because they have like the shells that are curled, and I completely forgot to look that one up. So I'm sorry, I don't actually know what species of animal it was hunting, but it was in the same kind of family as like squids and octopus and nautilus and things like that, where they had like the tentacles and the squishy body inside the protective shell that Globidens would have used its teeth to crush.
Gotcha. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Sorry about that.
No, it's okay. It happens. And someone from YouTube was asking, because most of the world was water at some point, I assume these were all found on current dry land.
Yeah. So a lot of them have been found in land. The ones in North America, they were found there used to be a seaway in the middle of North America. So it used to be water just covering the middle of North America. And so a lot of them have been found in where that seaway used to be, kind of in like Tennessee, Georgia, that kind of area.
Gotcha. All right. And it looks like we have a couple more minutes left, just to let you know as well.
One last one.
Okay. Yeah. So the last question here is, at least with Globidens, I think, does it use its crescent-shaped head to like dig? Or I think it's for the other drawing.
As far as like for like the snout and things like that, it might have used its snout to kind of dig in the sand for any like clams or things like that. I'm not positive. It's hard to tell from the fossil record behavior because you're just kind of seeing a snapshot of the animal, and so like sometimes as far as like behavior goes, we have to infer it based on like, sometimes some of the anatomy will kind of tell us the behaviors based on like animals that are currently alive. But I'm not sure if that's been studied for Globidens as far as like how it was hunting, if it could have been digging through the sand for other mollusks and things like that too.
Gotcha.
I would say it's possible.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah. Great guesses. All right. Great questions. Thank you so much. Okay. All right. So I think Rachel is drawing this one. Okay. And for this one, this animal is very long with a long tail that comes to a point. And the tail has kind of extra skin on the top and the bottom. Kind of flat extra skin on the top and the bottom. Perfect.
Like that.
All right. Yeah. It has 4 limbs, so four legs that have fingers but no claws. So they're a little stubby.
How many fingers does it have?
In the front, it has 4 fingers, and in the back, it has 5. And then for the head, oh, sorry, I'll let you finish the back 5 fingers.
Go ahead.
All right, and then the head is huge, and is shaped kind of like a triangle with rounded edges, but giant, really large. And it has 2 eyes kind of at the end of the head.
Like here?
Mm-hmm. All right. And that's basically the animal. If I were to describe the skin, it would be slimy. Okay, here, let me show what it looks like. Do you have any guesses?
We do. So Piper and Adeline were saying water dragon really excitedly. And then Jennifer was saying prehistoric crocodile. Someone else was saying maybe ancient salamander.
Oh, great.
Closer.
Yeah, great observations. Okay, so it is a prehistoric salamander, and I like the partially aquatic due to slimy skin. Yes, you got it. Okay, so I'm going to share what this one looks like. This is what we call Koolasuchus, and it is a prehistoric salamander. If you look, there's a comparison to a human, average human on the top left. These ones could get 13 to 16 feet, so they were quite large as far as, salamanders go. And I'll show in comparison to some of the modern day salamanders here. But if you look, it does have that slimy skin that's characteristic of salamanders. It would have been mostly aquatic, and it had that, again, that giant head. And with this one, it got its name again for paleontologist Leslie Kool, but it also lived in a cool environment. So the fossils have been found in Australia, and where it lived in Australia, it was like below the Arctic Circle back in prehistoric times. So it would have been in pretty cold areas. But what astounds me the most, I think, is the fact that it is 13 to 16 feet, but it is estimated to be over 1,000 pounds, because that is ridiculous. I mean, if you compare it to like Quetzalcoatlus that we talked about earlier, that was only like 400 to 500 pounds, but it was like 35 feet long with the wingspan. Now that is also because it had to fly, so it had probably those hollowed bones and things like that, so it didn't weigh as much when it was flying. But this one, the fact that it could be over 1,000 pounds is amazing to me. And the cool thing about this one too was, again, it was alive kind of in the early Cretaceous time period. So we're talking about before, again, like the common ones like Tyrannosaurus Rex and Triceratops, but after like Stegosaurus and things like that too. And yeah, it was very, very interesting. And with that slimy skin and it being mostly aquatic, if I have not had a chance to touch a Koolasuchus, because again, it is extinct, but if you were to take your tongue and feel the inside of your mouth, that would probably be the kind of what a Koolasuchus might feel like. It's kind of that like slimy but smooth skin-ish. Oh, right. Oh, and I wanted to compare it to some living day species of salamanders. So again, this one, 13 to 16 feet. The largest ones that we have nowadays are what we call Chinese giant salamanders. And they can get to be, I think, about like 6 to 8 feet. 8 might be large in comparison, so about half the size that the Koolasuchus would be. And then we also have, locally, we have the hellbender salamander, which only gets to be about 2 feet, so maybe about this long. And so again, these were really, really large salamanders. And here's the picture of the jaw. Unfortunately, it doesn't have great size comparison, but this is at the Melbourne Museum in Australia. And it's quite a large jaw. And if you look, it does have like little teeth that you can see. So it definitely was like a predator that was eating meat with these little pointed teeth here. And yeah, really, really intense. Do we have any questions about Koolasuchus or anything?
So we have some other questions about the other specimens that we went over, if that's okay to ask really quick.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Perfect. So someone was asking, I think this was also related to the mosasaurs, but someone was saying, is it possible that there are fossils underwater of species not yet discovered?
Yeah, that's definitely a possibility. A lot of the species that we have to study with paleontology are ones that we can easily access. So ones that, are brought up to the surface with erosion or earthquakes and things like that too. So if we have fossils that are like down at the bottom of the ocean, we're unfortunately not going to be able to study them, at least not yet. Yeah. So it's totally possible that there are fossils that we haven't discovered yet.
Awesome, thank you. And these next two questions I think are again related to Quetzalcoatlus. So the first one is, are there more dinosaurs with wings or without wings?
That's a great question. So as far as dinosaurs are concerned, the Quetzalcoatlus is not a dinosaur. It's a flying reptile. So it's again a different branch of the tree than dinosaurs were. There were dinosaurs with feathers on their arms that were like early possible wings, but they still had, like fingers at the end of them and everything like that. So there were, but again, those would be the ones in the theropod family. So the ones in like the Tyrannosaurus Rex, Archaeopteryx, and Velociraptor. Archaeopteryx was actually the one of the first dinosaurs that kind of has characteristics of both birds and dinosaurs, and so that would have had more like longer feathers on the arms, but again, still had arms. It wasn't quite wings to that point yet.
Ah, gotcha. Okay, thank you. Yeah, and the other question related to that one is about how much weight can Quetzalcoatlus carry if you were to ride on top of it?
Oh, that's a great question. I'm not sure. That's a fabulous question. I'm not sure how much it could have carried, because I assume it had to. I mean, so Quetzalcoatlus, it could fly, but it was also spent a lot of its time, walking on its like, legs, because it was very heavy. It probably used a lot of energy to fly and things like that. So most of the time, I think it would have like hunted on the ground and things. I'm not sure if it would have ever like tried to carry away any weight when it was flying or things like that. So that's a good question. I'm not positive.
No worries. Thank you so much. And we actually did get a question for Koolasuchus. Someone asked, why isn't its feet webbed if it lives underwater?
Oh, that's a good question. So it's as far as the picture goes, it did not have webbed feet. And I'm wondering if that might be because it wasn't as aquatic as today's modern day, like crocodiles and alligators. It might have spent more of its time kind of by the water, but not necessarily in the water swimming, which might have done it. But the thing about a lot of like crocodilians that are at least alive today and things like that, they do have webbed feet that help them swim a little bit, but most of their power from swimming comes from their tail. So they use their tail to kind of push them through the water. And so wait, sorry. We're talking about Koolasuchus.
Yes, Koolasuchus, yeah.
Sorry, so sorry. I was thinking of Carnifex, the crocodile morph. Okay, Koolasuchus probably also used its tail. If we go back to Koolasuchus's picture, then and especially compared to like the hellbender salamander and things like that. Here, let me share my screen really quickly, because I know we're running out of time.
Okay.
There we go. Okay, so if you look on its tail, you'll see the extra like fin of skin essentially would have used its tail to propel itself through the water. It could have used its arms to kind of help it like grip rocks and things like that if it were in shallower water, to help move through that. But for the most part, it would have used its tail. And again, comparing it to like the modern day salamanders, they also have that elongated kind of flattened tail that helps. It's like a paddle that helps them swim through the water. Yeah, sorry about that. I was thinking Carnifex.
Okay, you're fine. Thanks for answering all of those questions.
Yeah.
And I believe that is all the time that we have for today.
Yes.
So thank you everyone for joining. And thank you, Sam, for teaching us everything about these cool prehistoric reptiles and amphibians. I'm pretty sure everyone enjoyed that, especially the drawing activity, because I know I love the sketch along all the time.
I hope so. I did want to say really quickly, plug, if you really liked today's, learning about prehistoric reptiles, we actually have another program at 1 o'clock today that's talking about boneheaded reptiles in the prehistoric record for old news. So register for that one if you want to see that one. And also next week, we have a natural sciences classroom, Sticky Science. So if you want to join us next Tuesday at 11 o'clock, we'll be talking about that as well.
And I'm posting those links in here.
Oh,
really
yes. We'll post those in the chat as far as registration goes.
Yeah, well, thank you again, Sam. And I definitely want to thank everyone who came and joined us today for this particular program. It was really fun for everybody here. But before we all leave, I also want to remind everyone that this program has been recorded and will be posted onto the Reptiles and Amphibians Day program page. And our next program is Snakes of Raleigh with Bonnie Emick at 12 p.m. So if you'd like to see some other programs as well, you can learn more at the Reptiles and Amphibians Day program page, which will also link into the chat as well. And before I forget, let me get this all started first. Oopsie. Sorry about that. There we go. All right, before I forget. We do also have t-shirts for this lovely event. And if you go to our website, you can purchase your own t-shirt for Reptiles and Amphibians Day. If you join our membership or renew your membership as well, you can get a discount off of your purchase. So definitely think about joining us as well. But yeah, other than that, thank you again, everyone, for joining us today. We hope you have a wonderful rest of your day.
Thank you all.
Thank you.